Hey travelers, welcome back to TravelVibes. If you're someone who loves exploring new destinations, traveling for work, or even just planning your first big flight, this video is for you. Flying might seem simple: buy a ticket, find your seat, and enjoy the ride. But if you've been on enough flights, you know that some passengers make the experience way worse for everyone else. And the worst part? They don't even realize it. There's a hidden rulebook to flying, one that airlines don't print on your ticket, but every smart traveler should know. Following these unwritten rules will help you avoid awkward moments, travel like a pro, and make your flights smoother for everyone around you. So, how many of these unspoken rules have you been guilty of breaking? Stick around, because let's be real, we've all been there at least once. But before we dive in, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss the best travel tips, flight hacks, and packing secrets right here on TravelVibes. Now let's jump into the 20 unwritten rules of flying that you might be breaking. 1. Think before you recline. It's not just your space. Reclining your seat feels great until it spills someone's drink, crushes their laptop, or smashes their knees. Imagine settling in, only to have the seat in front of you slam back without warning. Frustrating, right? Yes, you paid for your seat, and yes, you can recline. But a little courtesy goes a long way. Before leaning back, glance behind you and give a quick heads up. A simple, "Hey, I'm reclining a bit," can prevent unnecessary tension. And if it's mealtime, stay upright until trays are cleared. Flying is all about sharing space. A little awareness makes the trip better for everyone. And speaking of making things smoother, let's talk about a mistake people make before they even step on the plane. 2. Stop crowding the gate. It won't get you there faster. We've all seen it: passengers hovering around the boarding gate, inching forward like it's a race to the finish line. But here's the truth: pushing ahead won't get you to your seat any faster. It just clogs the area, slows down the process, and frustrates everyone, including the airline staff. Boarding groups exist for a reason. First, families with young children and those needing assistance board. Then, priority passengers and different seat zones follow. When people crowd the gate before their turn, it creates chaos and unnecessary stress. If you're worried about overhead bin space, don't try to sneak in early. Book a seat in an earlier boarding group instead. Otherwise, stay seated until your zone is called and let the process flow smoothly. Speaking of space, let's talk about one of the most overlooked rules that can make or break a comfortable flight: the battle for armrests. 3. The middle seat deserves both armrests. It's only fair. Nobody wants the middle seat. It's cramped, uncomfortable, and comes with zero perks. But if you do end up stuck there, there's one unwritten rule that makes it slightly more bearable. You get both armrests. Think about it. The window seat gets a wall to lean on and a great view. The aisle seat has extra legroom and easy access to get up. But the poor middle seat? They have nothing. The least they deserve is full control of both armrests. Yet too often, passengers in the aisle or window hog one, or even both, armrests, leaving the middle seat with nowhere to rest their arms. It's a small courtesy, but it makes a big difference. So next time you're in the aisle or window, resist the urge to claim both armrests. Let the middle seat have this one win. And while we're on the topic of in-flight comfort, here's a rule that should go without saying, but people still break it. 4. Keep your shoes on. Nobody wants to see or smell your feet. Flying can be long and exhausting, and we all want to get comfortable. But let's set one thing straight: walking around the plane barefoot is never okay. It might seem harmless to kick off your shoes, but airplane floors, they're not as clean as you think. The carpet rarely gets deep cleaned, and let's not even talk about what's on the bathroom floor. Spoiler alert, that's probably not just water. If you really need to take your shoes off, do it discreetly and wear socks or travel slippers. And whatever you do, never prop your bare feet on the armrest, tray table, or the seat in front of you. It's unhygienic, inconsiderate, and guaranteed to disgust the passengers around you. Now that we've covered personal space, let's talk about another frustrating habit: people who think they can deplane before it's their turn. 5. Wait your turn to exit. Pushing won't get you off faster. The second the plane lands, seatbelts start clicking, people jump up, and suddenly, it's a mad rush to grab bags and push forward. But here's the reality. Unless you're in the first few rows, you're not going anywhere yet. Deplaning happens row by row. If you're in row 25, shoving past passengers in row 10 won't magically teleport you to the exit. It only creates frustration and makes the process even slower. The only time it's okay to move ahead? If you have a tight connection. In that case, politely let people know, and most travelers will be understanding. Otherwise, stay in your seat, wait your turn, and let everyone exit in an orderly fashion. Speaking of overhead bins, let's talk about one of the biggest mistakes people make: using them the wrong way and causing unnecessary chaos. Number 6. Use the overhead bin wisely. It's not a closet. Overhead bin space is limited, yet some passengers treat it like their personal storage unit, stuffing in jackets, small purses, or even shopping bags. The problem? That space is meant for actual carry-on suitcases, and when small items take up room, other travelers are forced to check their bags last minute. Here's the simple rule: if it can fit under the seat in front of you, that's where it belongs. Small backpacks, purses, and duty-free bags should go at your feet, not in the overhead bin. The bins are for roller bags and larger carry-ons. By following this simple courtesy, everyone boards and settles in faster, and there's enough space for everyone's essentials. Now let's move on to another rule that too many travelers ignore, the one that keeps airplane bathrooms bearable for everyone. 7. Be quick and clean in the bathroom. It's not your personal spa. Airplane lavatories are tiny, shared, and used by hundreds of people per flight. That means spending too much time in there, or leaving a mess, is a sure way to annoy fellow passengers. First, keep it quick. If you're freshening up, do it efficiently. This isn't a 5-star hotel bathroom. On long-haul flights, people are waiting, and no one wants to stand in line forever. Second, clean up after yourself. Wipe down the sink if you splash water everywhere, toss your paper towels in the trash, and for the love of travel, always flush. You'd be surprised how many people forget. And here's an obvious but necessary reminder: never go to the bathroom barefoot. Those floors? They're not just wet from water. Enough said. Now that we've covered bathroom etiquette, let's talk about something just as irritating: people who turn the cabin into their personal living room by being way too loud. 8. Keep your volume down. The plane isn't your living room. Airplanes aren't libraries, but they're not coffee shops either. Yet some passengers act like they're the only ones on board, talking loudly, laughing non-stop, or blasting videos without headphones. If you're chatting with a seatmate, keep your voice at a reasonable level. No one needs to hear your life story or business deals from 3 rows away. And if you're watching a movie or scrolling through social media, wear headphones. Playing music or videos on speaker is a surefire way to make enemies mid-flight. And what if you're sitting next to someone who won't stop talking? A simple polite smile followed by putting on headphones is a great way to signal that you're not up for conversation, without being rude. Speaking of personal space, let's move on to another common mistake: switching seats without permission. 9. Don't switch seats without asking. It's not a free-for-all. So you spot an open seat and think, perfect, I'll just move over. Not so fast. Just because a seat looks empty doesn't mean it's up for grabs. Airlines carefully plan seating, and that spot might be reserved for a passenger boarding later, or someone who paid extra for it. If you really want to switch, ask a flight attendant first. They can confirm if the seat is available and might even help you find a better option. And if you're asking another passenger to swap, be fair. Don't offer someone a middle seat in exchange for their aisle seat. That's just cruel. Want to guarantee sitting next to your travel buddy? Book seats together in advance. Otherwise, be prepared to stick with what you got. Now, let's talk about something that too many passengers forget: the simple act of appreciating the flight crew. 10. Say thank you. Flight crews deserve basic courtesy. Flight attendants deal with hundreds of passengers on every flight, managing delays, handling requests, and ensuring everyone's safety. Yet so many travelers barely acknowledge them. A simple thank you when receiving your drink or meal goes a long way. It costs nothing, but it makes a big difference. And here's a little secret: being polite to the crew can sometimes lead to unexpected perks. If there's an open seat in a better section or extra snacks, who do you think they'll be more likely to help? The friendly passenger or the one treating them like a servant? At the end of the flight, A quick, "Thanks for the great service" as you exit is a small gesture that leaves a big impact. It's basic kindness. And let's be real, the world could use more of that. Now that we've covered respecting the crew, let's get back to another passenger-related issue: people who block the aisle and slow everything down. 11. Don't block the aisle. Keep it moving. Boarding and deplaning should be smooth. But nothing slows things down more than people standing in the aisle, rummaging through their bags like they're packing for a week. We get it. You need your headphones, book, or neck pillow. But the middle of the aisle isn't the place to reorganize your carry-on. Digging through your bag while others wait behind you just creates unnecessary traffic and delays. The same goes for deplaning. If it's not your row's turn to exit yet, don't stand up and block the aisle. Grabbing your bag early won't get you off any faster, it only makes things more chaotic. Want to keep things moving? Have your essentials ready before boarding, step aside when needed, and be prepared when it's actually time to exit. Speaking of shared space, let's talk about an often overlooked issue: who controls the window shade? 12. Don't hog the window shade. It's not just your view. If you're lucky enough to score a window seat, congratulations. You get the best view, a solid surface to lean on, and full control of the window shade. Or do you? While the shade is technically next to you, it affects the entire row. Some passengers want to enjoy the scenery, while others might need to sleep, especially on long-haul flights. If the sun is glaring directly into the cabin, keeping the shade wide open might be uncomfortable for others. The best approach? Be considerate. If your rowmates seem bothered by the light or ask politely, adjust the shade halfway, or check if a compromise works for everyone. On overnight flights, when the cabin is dimmed, it's usually best to keep the shade down unless you absolutely need it up. Flying is all about sharing space, and speaking of that, let's talk about the one thing that should never be shared: personal hygiene habits. 13. Respect personal space and keep your hygiene in check. Airplane seats are already tiny, so the last thing anyone wants is someone spilling into their space, stretching too far, or ignoring basic hygiene. First, let's talk about manspreading. Yes, legroom is limited, but that doesn't mean you can invade your neighbor's space. Keep your arms and legs within your designated area. It's a shared row, not your living room couch. Now, about smells. Strong perfume, overpowering cologne, or bringing food with a lingering odor can make the flight miserable for those around you. And let's not forget about body odor. A quick deodorant refresh before boarding is always a good idea. Also, airplane grooming is a big no-no. Clipping nails, flossing, or brushing hair mid-flight? Save it for the hotel. No one should have to dodge flying nail clippings at 35,000 feet. Being mindful of space and hygiene makes flying much more pleasant for everyone. Now let's move on to something passengers frequently misuse: the underseat and overhead storage. 14. Use your own space. Don't take more than your share. Storage space on a plane is limited, yet some travelers seem to think they deserve more than their fair share, hogging both the overhead bin and the underseat space. Here's how it should work. Your carry-on suitcase goes in the overhead bin, and your personal item, like a backpack or purse, goes under the seat in front of you. Yet, some passengers stash everything in the overhead, leaving no room for others' actual luggage. Worse, some even use the space under someone else's seat, forcing their rowmates to squeeze their legs into a corner. The fix is simple: use your own space and be mindful of others. If you're traveling light and don't need the overhead bin, great. But don't take extra space just because you can. And if you see someone struggling to find a spot for their bag, offering a little help can make boarding easier for everyone. Now that your bags are in place, let's talk about another moment when people forget common courtesy: asking to get out of their seat. 15. Be polite when asking to get out. No climbing over people. You're in the window or middle seat, and nature calls. Do you A, politely ask your seatmate to let you out? Or B, attempt to awkwardly climb over them while they sleep? If you picked B, we need to talk. Nobody likes being woken up mid-flight, but climbing over someone without asking is worse. It's uncomfortable, awkward, and downright rude. Instead, a simple, "Excuse me, I need to step out," is all it takes. Most people will happily move rather than risk an accidental knee to the face. And timing matters too. If your seatmates are already up, take that opportunity to stretch your legs as well. That way you don't have to disturb them again 20 minutes later. Flying is all about being considerate. And speaking of that, let's talk about one of the biggest travel pet peeves: loud passengers who just don't get the hint. 16. Read the room. Not everyone wants to chat. Some people love making small talk on a flight, while others just want peace and quiet. But nothing is worse than being stuck next to someone who doesn't pick up on social cues and talks nonstop. If you're seated next to someone, a friendly greeting is great. But if they put on headphones, open a book, or give short replies, that's a clear sign they're not looking for a deep conversation. Forcing someone into endless small talk can make a long flight feel even longer. And if you're the one who wants quiet? A simple way to avoid unwanted chatter is putting on headphones, even if you're not listening to anything. It's an easy, polite way to signal that you're not in the mood for conversation. Being a good travel companion means respecting the space and preferences of those around you. Now, let's talk about another common in-flight mistake: people who forget that air vents and reading lights don't just affect them. 17. Be mindful of air vents and reading lights. They affect more than just you. Ever been on a flight where the person next to you blasts the air vent full force, turning your seat into an Arctic zone? Or how about someone who leaves their overhead light on during a red-eye flight, shining it directly into your face? These little things might seem harmless, but they can make a flight uncomfortable for those around you. If you're using the air vent, adjust it so it cools you without freezing your neighbor. And when it comes to the reading light, tilt it toward your tray table rather than flooding the entire row with brightness. If you're ever unsure, a quick check with your seatmates can go a long way. A simple "Hey, is this okay?" can prevent unnecessary discomfort and make the flight better for everyone. And now that we've covered comfort, let's move on to something that should be obvious, but people still do it all the time: taking a seat that's not theirs. 18. Don't take someone else's seat. It's not a free upgrade. You board the plane, spot an empty aisle or window seat, and think, why not just sit here instead? After all, what's the harm? Well, a lot. Airlines carefully assign seats, and many passengers pay extra for premium spots like aisle seats or extra legroom. Taking a seat that's not yours can cause awkward confrontations when the rightful passenger arrives. And trust me, no one enjoys that mid-flight drama. If you want to switch seats, ask a flight attendant first. They can confirm if the seat is actually available. And if you're asking another passenger to swap, be fair. Don't expect someone to trade their aisle seat for your middle seat. It's just not going to happen. The best way to sit where you want? Choose your seat when booking. Otherwise, accept what you got and wait for your next flight to grab that perfect spot. Now, let's talk about something even more important: treating the flight crew with the respect they deserve. 19. Treat flight attendants with respect. They're not your personal servants. Flight attendants are there for your safety, not just to serve drinks and snacks. Yet too many passengers treat them like waitstaff, snapping fingers, making endless demands, or worse, being outright rude. Here's something to remember. Flight attendants have a tough job. They deal with delays, turbulence, medical emergencies, and yes, impatient travelers. A little courtesy goes a long way. Saying please and thank you when asking for something takes zero effort, but can make a big difference. And here's a little secret: kind passengers often get better treatment. If there's an extra snack, a better seat available, or a way to make your flight smoother, who do you think they'll help first? The polite traveler or the demanding one? At the end of the flight, a simple "thanks for a great flight" as you exit costs nothing, but leaves a positive impact. And speaking of a positive impact, let's talk about the final unwritten rule. One that can make air travel better for everyone. 20. A little kindness goes a long way. Be the passenger you'd want to sit next to. Flying isn't just about getting from point A to point B. It's about sharing a space with hundreds of other travelers. Every passenger on that plane has their own story. Some are heading off on an exciting adventure, others are traveling for work, and some might even be flying for something more difficult, like a family emergency. A little patience, respect, and kindness can go a long way. Give a friendly nod to your seatmate, help someone struggling with their bag, or simply be mindful of your actions. These small gestures don't just make the flight better for others, they make it better for you too. At the end of the day, air travel is about coexisting in a small space for a few hours. Follow these unwritten rules, and you'll not only make the experience smoother, you'll also be the kind of passenger that others actually want to sit next to. Now, be honest. How many of these rules have you broken? Let me know in the comments, and if you found these tips helpful, don't forget to subscribe to Travel Vibes for more travel hacks, insider tips, and everything you need to fly smarter. Thanks for watching, and safe travels!